Welcome to the Scott Fraser Show, where I have oftentimes pointless conversations with interesting people. Today I'm joined by journalist and author Jenny Yuen. We're going to talk about schmooshing. More accurately, we're going to talk about polyamory and open relationships. Jenny, thanks for being here.
Yeah, no problem.
What is polyamory, for those who may be uncertain or afraid to ask?
So there is a definition. It's actually in the dictionary, and I think it was entered there a few years ago. But it's basically, it comes from Greek and Latin, meaning many loves, so poly and amor. So what it's based on is the belief that it's relationships, multiple loving relationships with everyone's consent and knowledge. And it's the foundations are like honesty, trust, open communication, respect, and obviously love. So, much different from polygamy, which it often gets confused for, but that's polyamory in a nutshell.
Great. Can you recommend any great books on the subject?
That seems like you cornered me here. So
that's right.
I am a Dundurn author, and I wrote a book called Polyamorous in late 2018, and it talks about our story as I have two long-term partners, but also just stories of polyamory across Canada, and some of the things included are issues about how the unique challenges that polyamorous people face. Including childcare, families, legal things like whether or not you can have commitment ceremonies and gray areas like that. So I do have a book that talks about all that stuff.
Great. I I'll try to get my act together and post some links. I'm not super savvy with the tech, but I'll see what I can do. It's a great book, and I want to just give you an opportunity to give it a shout out. So you mentioned you have two long-term partners. Can you tell us a little bit about the relationship style that you're in, or the style of relationship that you're in?
Yep. So for polyamory can span polyamorous relationships can look like anything. That's why we call them polycules, because if you think of a chalkboard in science class with molecules and how they connect in different ways, polyamorous relationships can do exactly the same thing. So for us, we are in what we call a V relationship. So there's one of my partners at the end, and then the other partners at the other end. I'm in the middle, which we call either the hinge. There's another word for that as well. Too,
I've heard pivot.
Pivot. Yes.
Is that a term? Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you all live together, or what's the domestic arrangement like, if you don't mind sharing?
So in the book, my legal husband, Charlie, who's British, he lives with me, and we rent a main floor apartment in a house in Toronto. And up the street is my other partner, Adam, in the book. These names have been changed, but he owns a condo, and he's literally a 10-minute walk away, which we kind of all planned it that way. We all really respect and like our own space, so it just so happened it worked out better this way. So we're not all living together, as a lot of, I think, people assume that polyamorous relationships are always like that. We're doing it our way, which works for us.
So you're all in the same, roughly in the same neighborhood. Are you? Do you speak frank? Like, do the neighbors ever say, "Oh, there's that Jenny lady walking up the street. I wonder where she's going." Do you live openly, or you'll
um,
walk down the street holding hands with both of your partners, or one at a
uh,
time, or what does that look
no,
like?
no. Well, actually, we don't really hold hands all together, and I know that yeah, some people do that. We generally just kind of walk. The three of us who are walking together, we're just walking. We don't have to hold hands,
Just normal.
and yeah, basically one of us generally is pushing a stroller anyway. So we Charlie and I have our daughter who's a year and a half now, so she's just starting to learn how to walk. So if we're holding
No.
something, it's usually hers.
Cute. And
But
are both of your partners involved with raising your daughter?
yes.
Oh, that's
So
lovely.
yeah, so right now Adam is a little bit further away just because he's older. He's in his 60s, and so that puts him at an at-risk category. So we've been doing our best to social distance and make sure that he's safe because that's our one of our number one priorities is to make sure that he's okay. So what we'll do during the pandemic is we've done Zoom chats. I think for Thanksgiving or not Thanksgiving, Easter
Time
dinner.
has no meaning. Time
Yeah,
is
I
just
know time has no meaning. So yeah, for Easter dinner we I think Charlie had made some like roast potatoes and some veg, and then Adam had cooked up a nice roast. So we would do like a drive-by switch off, and we would trade food, and then when we got home, then we had the Zoom ready to go, so we could all kind of sit down and have a nice virtual dinner together. So it's kind of the best case scenario at this point.
Yeah. So imagine, like, we're sitting here in mid-May 2020, the year from hell, and like this whole COVID-19 thing is it's got to be having a pretty big impact on polyamorous people. Do you have any ideas or tips about how people can maintain their polyamorous relationships during the age of physical distancing?
So yeah, I've been reading a lot of just notes from posts from people that are on poly groups, and they say like it is very tough, just because if you have multiple partners, to kind of have that intimacy. But I think everyone's just doing the best they can, which is continuous phone chats or virtual chats. And if they do see each other, then they stay that 6 feet distance away from one another. But in terms of the intimacy, the actual like physicality of it, I think yeah, it is tough. So um, as anything else in life, this is all temporary, hopefully. So I think that's what you kind of have to keep reminding yourself of, and that gives you something to look forward to, which is kind of the essence of life, right? Is that you need something to look forward to.
Yeah, hope is important, and optimism too. We don't have to be miserable even if the conditions are miserable.
Yeah.
Um, so like Jenny, is your family are they aware of your relationship style? Like, do your parents, are they aware, or do you have siblings or anything like that?
I guess so. I do have an older brother who's also in Toronto. He's a social worker. We're not that close, but he's there's also a 10-year gap between us. But they've all been really accepting, which is really surprising. A few years ago, I don't like the word maybe coming out, but it was we told them about our relationship styles. So my dad kind of like took a minute to think about it, and he was kind of like figuring it out in the air, and he's like, so who are you marrying, and how is this going to work? So and at the end he's like, you know what, you guys are all adults. He's in his 80s, so he's lived through a lot of stuff. So
Yeah,
and he's like, life's short, you're all adults, be happy.
whatever works.
And whatever works. And my parents have been kind of outliers in the traditional Chinese um, parent kind of view from in that sense, but we're pretty lucky to have that. So, and my mom, again, like as I said in the book, she just likes having somebody extra to carry groceries. Well, maybe not now.
Right, an extra set of hands. So
Yeah,
there's a
exactly.
lot. There's a lot. There are a lot of possible angles here. Like when you suggested that your dad was trying to do the calculations, my mind
Yeah.
went to maybe he was trying to think if there was another lady out there for him.
So
I
my
imagine
dad
maybe you don't want to speculate on that.
my dad is like a total hermit. So the pandemic is like everyday living for him. So he is he is definitely not the poly type of person. But yeah, no, he's open minded enough to be like, you know what, whatever works.
What's the strangest reaction that you've gotten from a friend or associate or colleague or what have you?
So a person that I worked with years ago when we were just kind of exploring what polyamory is and it means to us, and we were starting to tell like close people, friends of ours that this was happening, and I guess it obviously was gossipy enough to spread to around the newsroom. So this person came up to me, and I think that that person had consumed a lot of alcohol that night. There was like a
Uh-oh.
staff party, and then they went up to me and said like, you know, your lifestyle is fucking weird. I didn't know what to do with that. I still kind of replay that moment like years later, thinking, wow, that was super inappropriate. But
Yeah, totally.
um, yeah, I think that was kind of the one that sticks out for me. So,
That
but yeah, what can you do?
but the strange thing is, and like the you talked about polyamory being about openness and honesty, and there's quite there's an assumption of a lot of an inherent equality between the partners, um, or at least an openness and respect. Um, but like it's not like everyone else is running around cheating and like having their side flings and
That's
stuff.
just it.
Like what? Like, why would stabilizing it be weirder than just running around cheating?
I feel because it's so yeah, cheating is kind of like the norm, right? We see it in mass media, mainstream media. We hear about it, and we hear about the stories of domestic abuse and the jealous boyfriend and all that. So I think we become acclimatized to that sort of that's normal versus if we're having open and honest discussions about multiple loving relationships, then that's weird because how does that work? It automatically is linked to cheating because it's coming from, you're doing it because you are unhappy in your relationship or you're having problems and you just don't want to, you're afraid to leave the relationship, but you want to have your cake and eat it too. We often hear that, and it's completely different. It's a misnomer. So yeah, I just think that polyamory it feels like a lot of work to people, and it is, but it's something that they just can't compute for some people. So
Well, I would suggest that it's also a lot of work to maintain this crippling dishonesty with
yeah,
with
definitely.
partners and emotional self stunting.
Yes.
Like whether or not polyamory is for any particular individual, you got to think like you're going to be attracted to other people
Mm-hmm.
regardless of your relationship style, and pretending otherwise is kind of like seems like a recipe for disaster.
And that's the thing. I think a lot of people do feel those feelings, but because they've already said, okay, we're in a monogamous relationship, and the understanding is if you enter a monogamous relationship, then that's it. It's only the two of you. So when you bring up or you start feeling feelings towards other people, then it's threatening to that other person because it's like, hey, that's not what I signed up for. I signed up for just you and me and nobody else, and so you shouldn't be feeling these feelings, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, I can see why it would be threatening in cases like that. But I think people need to have that open and honest communication, regardless of what type of relationship you're in, because that's the only way to build that foundation between the two of you.
Right. Anything else that you'd like to share about polyamory, or are there any local resources or national or international resources that people who are curious might want to check out?
So there's a national resource called the Canadian Polyamory Advocacy Association. You can look it up. They have a website. They're more for the again advocacy side of things. They did like a legal challenge a few years ago at the Supreme Court. Um, But if you look on Facebook, actually, Facebook is the best resource for people because they can find polyamory groups from all over Canada locally, and you'll find multiple sometimes. So it's just a good way to connect with people that are close to you, that you can talk about issues with. And I mean, with the advent of the internet, it's great because you can connect to not only local people, but groups from across Canada and beyond. So it's nice to feel that you're part of a community where it's not necessarily so small, even though there may not be other poly people around you, like nearby.
Right. Great. Probably especially if you're outside of a major urban center.
Totally. Yep.
Yeah.
100%.
Great. Well, thank you so much for taking some time to join me today. And I'm really, really sorry that I put the mental image of your father swinging out there for everyone to think about.
It's okay. I've come across some like bad porn from like the magazines and everything back when I was kind of, very curious child snooping around all the time. So there was always that nice, not Playboys. They were like your low budget Playboys. So
Oh, awesome. And
yeah,
that was
like
your dad's magazine collection?
yeah, like big hair.
Now, what would he say? What would your dad say about you talking to me on my homemade internet show about his porn collection?
He has no internet access at home, so it's totally,
he's not going to find out.
I don't think he's ever going to find out. Actually, it's funny. They used to at Chinese supermarkets, like in the GTA, they used to give out these calendars of like topless Asian women. So you would have this massive calendar of like, the dates and everything, and then it was like a topless woman, and then you would flip the pages. But they would give them out at Chinese supermarkets. So
Well,
they
just like as a
have,
little like thanks for shopping.
I guess so. Yeah.
Like, here's some tits.
Like, so they still have those up in like 1988, which is the best. So.
Oh my God, I would love to do just like have you like have you show them, like do like a little show and tell, show us these calendars from the 80s. That's hilarious.
Yeah. So I was kind of growing up with like somewhat of sexuality around me, but yeah, kind of not willingly, so I don't know.
Well, that's hilarious. I if we had more time, I would just talk to you about like weird stuff from Asian grocery stores that weird pornographic images and stuff. But that's hilarious. That's great. Jenny Yuen, the author of Polyamorous, available wherever fine books are sold. Stay safe, and thanks for joining me.
Great, thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, great. Thanks, Jenny.
No problem. How do I stop this?
I'm just gonna hang up, and that should drop it.
Okay, cool. Bye.
All right, take care. Bye.
Bye.